Was picked in Philly spot, so Philly will end up with no first-round picks. The New Orleans Saints, who made it all the way to the NFC Championship game last year, they're on the clock. We'll be back.
Hey Josh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The New Orleans Saints, with the pick in, can change their history for a long time.
With the second choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Reggie Bush, running back, USC.
A moment almost unimaginable is here. The Saints back in New Orleans, back in the Superdome. Look out, right through! A pick block, it is scooped and scored! Touchdown, New Orleans!
From rags to riches on the football field, 3-13 to 10-6, representing a city that's hopefully going from rags to riches itself.
Handed off inside to Bush, nothing there, comes to the near sideline, inside the 5, diving for the pylon, he's in! Destiny's darlings are still alive, and New Orleans, let the party begin.
It simply was one of the most uplifting stories in football this or any other year, and it went beyond football. A city we all know what happened with Katrina, and then the Saints just uplifting those. So many had moved out or had to make temporary homes elsewhere, and those that remained, they flocked back to the Superdome. We were there that night. The nation saw it, and then to turn a team into a 10-6 with that excitement and the way they scored the points, and Breeze playing and Bush running it, Colston catching when they got in the 7th round, and then going up into beating Philadelphia in a wild playoff game, going into Chicago before they finally ended the season. It was a season that will be talked about forever. Pretty good first year for head coach Sean Payton, I would say.
You're not used to the Saints picking in this spot, and I think Sean Payton wants to make sure he stays in this spot in the first round and doesn't drop next year. So this pick very important.
But to do that, they're going to have to get their defense going. Yeah, they got a lot of offensive weapons, but they've got to get their defense going. Whether that's a linebacker, whether that's a defensive back. We've talked about some guys. We talked about Chris Houston of Arkansas possibly here. Or if they go offense to get another weapon, who do you think they would get if they actually went offense?
Well, you would have to think tight end Greg Olsen. They had Eric Johnson to a one-year deal, but I think you look at the tight end spot. You also look at the linebacker spot in the secondary at the cornerback position. So I think Chris Houston's name would come up. Greg Olsen, Paul Lusney from Penn State is still here at this stage of the first round. So the way it's falling right now, some of their needs can be addressed.
Even though their offense scored a lot of points, and that would be 413 points. Would they take a guy like Ben Grubbs, who you had on your board as a high...
Good football player. He's one of the best pure football players on the board, and the reason why he hasn't gone already is because he's a pure guard. He doesn't have the versatility to play tackle. Those versatile guys tend to go a little higher. Ben Grubbs is a guard, and right now he is one of the top 15 to 17 players still available.
You know, let's look back also what Drew Brees did. He went in, and you remember that Miami, wow, you can't play. The physical, he went in to play New Orleans. I'm going to live in the city. So not only was he a symbol of the Saints going from 3-13 to 10-6, he was a symbol of the resurgence of the city. I don't think you can overlook what Drew Brees did.
He was a perfect example of resurgence for that city because he'd already resurgenced his own career while he was in San Diego. It was on the bubble there the year before, and during that offseason, he went in, and we talk about aptitude, that ability to go in and dive in deep into football. He studied, put his body in shape, and played great football the year before he was let go and gone to New Orleans. He came to New Orleans with the right attitude, and he is one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in this league because he is so accurate and he has great leadership and that aptitude issue. I think that Drew Brees is going to be around for a long time and be a Pro Bowler, and I think he's got the perfect marriage with this coach now, and that city loves him. That is a love affair that will go on for quite a while.
You know what? It's going to be a fun game. It's the Saints, I believe their first home game this year was as if we had last year on that Monday night when they were 2-0 and they played 2-0 Atlanta, and you saw Gleason with the block hip punt that was great. This year, the opening game of the Saints at home is another Monday nighter. Vince Young in Tennessee at Reggie Bush and New Orleans. We'll see that on Monday Night Football, which is our segue to Mike Tirico and the gang. How was that, Mike?
Yeah, it was pretty good, Chris. You've done this before, right? That will be 364 days after September 25th of 06, and any of us who were in the Dome that day will never, ever forget it. You know, you talked about Drew Brees, guys, here with the Saints on the clock and 4:20 till their pick, or till their time runs out. It kind of dovetails with Brees here at the top of the second round where he was selected with San Diego a few years back. This is right around the time round where you expect to see quarterbacks taking a few of them, and Mel said Drew Stanton is his next quarterback, followed by Trent Edwards, John Beck.
Woodson went in 87. Now, the New Orleans Saints, Final Four team, have made their selection. The commissioner.
With the 27th pick in the 2007 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Robert Meachem, wide receiver, Tennessee.
Wow.
Well, I said John Gruden.
Wow. Sean Payton.
Sean Payton, he likes offense.
Wow.
Firepower. They lost Joe Horn.
I understand that. And they like Joe, but he wasn't healthy enough. And now they get Colston in the 7th round last year.
3 receiver, wide receiver sets, 3 receivers out there.
Bush.
A lot of weapons, a lot of toys.
Breeze, and now Meachem.
Big wide receiver, boom, 6'2", 215. He talked about the ability this year that he showed with Eric Ainge at quarterback. Put up big numbers. There he is against Chris Houston. Houston in coverage. Probably at the quarterback spot. Robert Meachem emerged as a big-time player and certainly a prospect that a lot of teams in the middle of the first round on have had their eye on.
You know, and in this division, I think that you think about offensively, they're going to put some points up. And in this division, if you score 28 points, you're going to go undefeated in the division in many cases. So I think that they're saying to themselves, they could go a lot of different ways here, but this guarantees them that they're going to be one of the more dynamic top 5 offenses in the league.
And now with Meachem going, along with Harrell, that gives a pair of balls that were selected. Miami has a pair of players. They always have first-round players selected. But wait, as they say on late night TV, but wait, there's more. LSU, of course, has a trio of players that have already been picked. Florida has a pair of players, Moss and Nelson, and Texas with Griffin and Moss. So, wondering how these teams did last year. I mean, these 5 schools with at least 2 one team picked already. We're not even done with the first round. So, New England now in the climb.
Sports director Jim Henderson has been following the draft all day. He joins us live from Saints camp with more on the Saints' first-round draft pick, one they made less than an hour ago. Jim?
Yeah, Lee, they waited till about 4:20 this afternoon. The Saints had a lot of options picking 27th in the first round. When their selection did come up, there was still a highly rated defensive tackle on the board. There were some cornerbacks on the board they might have been interested in. The tight ends had not been picked over at all. There was a linebacker, Pazluzny from Penn State, that they might have picked, and yet they stayed with offense. They went with another wide receiver, an area of need, in selecting Robert Meachem of Tennessee. He is 6'2" and 214 pounds. He has been timed in a 4.39 40. A very highly recruited player in prep. He was a parade and super prep All-American. Very big after the catch. He's got speed, elusiveness, and strength. I guess the only negatives about him that we ascertained immediately were he underwent a knee scope in '03. He seems to have recovered from that, obviously. He had some trouble with press coverage, something that a lot of the pro cornerbacks will certainly try to do and jam him at the line of scrimmage. People have said he reminds them of Torrey Holt, and that would be high praise indeed. In 2006, 71 catches, 11 went for touchdowns, 1,298 yards in receiving yards, and he returns kickoffs as well, which also could be a plus for this football team. We've yet to hear from Sean Payton or Mickey Loomis about the pick. We hope to do that in the minutes or hours ahead, and we'll be back with you later in sports. Lee?
All right, Jim, we'll see you coming up again in a few minutes. And we'll have more in today's draft coming.
Drive needed much more of everything this afternoon, more sunscreen, more beverages, and more patience. Last year, New Orleans made their first selection in the draft less than 30 minutes into the draft. This year, their first pick wasn't made until almost 5.5 hours after the draft started. Jim Henderson has been at Saints camp all day. He joins us live with more on Robert Meachem, the first-round pick of 2007. Jim?
A Tennessee Vol, a junior, a communications major, who said that he'd had his eye on the Saints last season, but didn't know that the Saints had their eye on him. In a conference call that he had with reporters here out at Saints camp just moments ago, he said that he had watched the Saints on television last year, was very impressed with their offense, very impressed with Sean Payton's commitment to his players as a player's coach, but he had no inkling that the Saints might select him with the 27th pick in the first round. He said he really didn't know that it was going to be the Saints until his cell phone showed up as Louisiana on the call that was coming in after the Saints made their selection about 20 minutes after 4 this afternoon. He's a big receiver. He'll play flanker. He figures to be in Joe Horn's old position as a flanker, as a player with size who intends to block in the running game. One thing he does have going for him as well is his ability in the red zone. He had 13 passes thrown to him last year in the red zone and caught 9 of those. And as you might remember, at least early in the season, the Saints offensively really tended to bog down in the red zone. So Sean Payton continues his commitment to offense. He continues his commitment to speed. And if you looked at all of the needs on this football team in the offseason, there was really only one that wasn't truly addressed, and that was at the wide receiver position after Joe Horn was let go and eventually went to Atlanta. So Saints address a need and hopefully get better on offense. Scott?
Jim, real quick, it seems that the Saints have no problem picking a Tennessee receiver somewhere that they've had some troubles in the past.
Dante Stallworth, yeah, and Tennessee's always turned out good wide receivers. Willie Gault came out of there, Cedric Wilson, Kelly Washington, I believe, as well. They've always had the reputation of having really speedy wide receivers who are very accomplished in a pro-style passing game, so hopefully it won't take him long to fit in on the NFL level.
Thank you, Jim. Much more from Jim Henderson out on Airline Drive next hour.